And just looking at some of this footage, it's intense. This fire is moving so fast.
Yeah.
Flames ripping through the hills. It's honestly kind of terrifying.
It's definitely a chaotic scene, no doubt about it. But we can break it down.
Okay.
We always start with the basics. What do we know about the location, the size, and the current status, according to officials?
Okay, good point. Let's get grounded. So, Pacific Palisades fire, it's burning in the Santa Monica Mountains.
Right, and that location's really adding another layer and complexity to this whole thing.
Yeah.
The Santa Monica Mountains nestled between Santa Monica and Malibu. It's not your typical suburb.
Right.
We're talking steep hills, narrow canyons.
Yeah.
Very limited road access, a nightmare for firefighting efforts.
Hold on, imagine trying to wrestle a fire truck through those winding roads with a raging fire all around you.
Yeah.
Talk about pressure.
Absolutely, and it's not just the roads that are a problem.
Okay.
Wind is playing a huge role here. We're talking red flag warnings, low humidity, and gusts easily reaching 50 miles per hour.
Wow.
Those winds are essentially throwing gasoline on this fire.
Oh, man. They're saying the strongest winds are expected overnight? That's a scary thought. They haven't even seen the worst of it yet.
Nope.
And with a fire, this intense evacuations are already happening, right?
Absolutely, and it's a massive effort. They're evacuating 30,000 residents. That's like the entire population of, I don't know, pick a small town being told to leave your homes potentially overnight.
Wow.
We're talking almost 10,000 households and over 13,000 structures under threat.
Oh, wow.
They're directing everyone to the Westwood Recreation Center.
10,000 households. The stress those families must be feeling having to leave everything behind so suddenly, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, amidst all this chaos, we've got these incredible firefighters trying to gain control of the situation.
Right. It sounds like every resource is being thrown at this fire.
They've got hundreds of firefighters from LA County Fire.
Wow.
And CalFire working together. It's a unified command.
Yeah.
It's like the fire services Avengers all joining forces.
I like it.
And it's not just boots on the ground.
Right.
They've got helicopters, some even equipped with night vision.
Really?
And air tankers dropping retardant.
Hold on. They have night vision helicopters.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I had no idea. But I bet even with all that tech, battling a fire at night in these conditions has got to be incredibly difficult.
There are definitely limitations. Visibility is obviously reduced at night.
Yeah.
And if those winds get any stronger, it could become too dangerous for aircraft to operate.
Right.
They're doing everything they can, but this fire is spreading incredibly aggressively.
So how do they even begin to contain something like this? It seems almost impossible.
They're focusing on creating containment lines.
Okay.
It's all about establishing boundaries, clearing out vegetation, and trying to box in the fire. A big part of this is protecting structures, particularly at the head of the fire. It's a leading edge where it's moving most rapidly.
But with those crazy winds, isn't that pretty difficult?
Unfortunately, yes. One of their biggest challenges right now is flying embers.
Oh, yeah.
These embers can be carried for miles by the wind.
Wow.
Starting new fires, sometimes miles away from the main blaze. It's like playing whack-a-mole, but with much higher stakes.
It reminds me of the campfire in Paradise, how those embers traveled for miles and caused so much destruction. So based on what we're seeing in these initial reports, what are the biggest concerns right now? What are officials most worried about?
Well, first and foremost, they're urging everyone in the evacuation zones to leave immediately.
Yeah.
They're stressing that this is a life or death situation and that people should not underestimate the danger.
Right.
The wind picking up overnight is a huge concern.
Of course.
As those stronger gusts will make containment much harder.
And those embers potentially starting even more fires.
Exactly. Preventing new ignitions is a major priority right now. Protecting structures and making sure firefighters have the resources they need to keep fighting. Those are the key things they're focused on.
Okay, so we've got the overall situation. But to understand the human side of this story, we've also got some really interesting insights from a CalFire official who was interviewed earlier.
Okay.
He was actually on the front lines battling this blaze.
Wow. He paints a very vivid picture of what it's like to be out there.
Okay, let's dive into that. What did he have to say?
Well, one of the things he emphasized is the incredibly challenging terrain.
Yeah.
He described the area as hills and small little crevices of canyons that the fire can get into and roll down and create a fire to go upward.
So it's like a tinderbox waiting to explode.
Right.
And those steep slopes and narrow canyons make it incredibly difficult for firefighters to even access the fire, right?
He actually said it's sometimes difficult to get some of our fire operators into these narrow roads and into these areas where these communities are.
So they're not just fighting the fire, they're fighting the terrain itself.
Yeah.
It must be incredibly frustrating.
And beyond the physical challenges, he was very candid about the emotional toll these fires take on the firefighters.
Yeah.
He talked about the devastation and the emotional burden of witnessing this destruction firsthand.
Yeah, I bet it's a heavy burden to carry.
Yeah.
What else did he say about the winds and the potential for things to escalate?
He was very clear that the strongest part of this wind event will be in the midnight hours through tomorrow morning around 6 a.m. He said they haven't even reached the highest potential. They're expecting the worst and prepared for anything, bringing in resources from all over California.
So even with all those resources, it sounds like they're still at the mercy of Mother Nature. Did he have any advice for residents in the area?
He was adamant that if you're in an evacuation zone, be ready to evacuate at a minute's notice and don't wait.
Okay.
He also talked about the importance of home hardening, taking steps to make your home more resistant to fire.
You know, the CalFire official really stressed home hardening.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some of the less obvious things people can do to protect their homes? Like beyond clearing brush and having a metal roof? What are the little-known tricks?
That's a great question. It would be interesting to dig into some resources and find those less obvious tips.
Yeah.
He did mention the importance of securing your home to make sure embers can't get in.
Cool.
Things like making sure windows and vents are sealed,
Yeah.
keeping gutters clear of debris.
It's like creating a fortress against those flying embers.
Exactly.
So we've heard from the CalFire official, but we've also got that press conference to go through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lots of officials giving detailed updates on the situation.
Exactly. There's a lot to unpack there, particularly about the scale of the response, the specific challenges they're facing, and the resources they're using to try and control this blaze.
All right, let's jump into that press conference and see what else we can uncover about this evolving situation.
So diving into this press conference, one thing that jumps out immediately is just the sheer number of agencies involved.
Yeah.
It's a massive coordinated effort.
It really highlights how complex this situation is.
Yeah.
So let's break it down. Who are the key players here?
Okay, well, leading the charge is the Los Angeles Fire Department, or LAFD.
Right.
They've got over 250 firefighters on scene, along with engines, trucks, helicopters, bulldozers, you name it.
Wow.
They're working really closely with the Los Angeles County Fire Department,
Okay.
who are providing even more resources, including those Firehawk helicopters and the Super Scooper aircraft.
Okay, so they're bringing in some serious firepower, and it's not just local resources, right? I remember you mentioned CalFire is also involved.
Exactly. CalFire, the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, is the state-level agency responsible for wildfire response.
Right.
They've got crews and equipment from all over the state coming in to support this effort.
Wow, so it really is an all-hands-on-deck situation, but
Wow.
all those people need to be coordinated.
Yeah.
Right? Who's in charge of making sure everything runs smoothly?
You've got a sort of incident command structure.
Oh.
They set up a unified command post where representatives from all these different agencies come together.
To coordinate their efforts.
Makes sense.
It's not just firefighters either.
Okay.
Law enforcement agencies like the LAPD and the LA County Sheriff's Department are playing a crucial role in evacuations and traffic control.
Right.
Plus, you've got all the elected officials, the mayor, city council members, even the governor working to keep everything coordinated and the public informed.
It's incredible to see everyone come together like this.
Okay.
But let's get into the details. What were some of the key updates they shared about the fire itself?
The LAFD fire chief, Kristen Crowley, gave a pretty comprehensive overview.
Okay.
She mentioned the fire was first reported at 10:30 that morning, starting at 1190 North Padra Miranda Drive.
Okay.
At that time, red flag warnings were already in effect with low humidity and winds gusting up to 50 miles per hour.
No wonder it spread so quickly. But did they give any indication of how large the fire has actually grown?
Chief Crowley said it was estimated to be around 12,261 acres.
Wow.
And growing rapidly.
That's a lot of land. She also reiterated those staggering evacuation numbers. 30,000 residents under evacuation orders and over 13,000 structures threatened.
Wow, those numbers are hard to grasp. But amidst all this chaos, have there been any reported injuries?
Chief Crowley expressed immense relief that at the time of the press conference, there were no reported injuries.
Okay.
However, she did acknowledge reports of damage to multiple structures.
It's a small miracle that no one has been hurt yet, given the intensity of this fire, but with the wind expected to pick up overnight. I imagine they're bracing for the possibility of things escalating.
Absolutely. Chief Crowley emphasized that they remain vigilant as the situation can change quickly.
Yeah.
The LA County Fire Chief Anthony Marone also spoke, stressing the importance of having a wildfire action plan. He urged residents to visit the LA County Fire Department website for information on how to prepare for these types of events.
It's good advice for anyone living in a fire-prone area, not just in California.
Right. Being prepared is key. And Chief Marone reiterated those warnings about the upcoming wind event. He said, the winds are going to pick up and get worse. We're going to have the most significant wind event between 10 p.m. this evening and 5 a.m. tomorrow morning.
So it sounds like they're expecting a long, difficult night. Did they mention anything about traffic and the impact of the evacuations on the roads?
LAPD Chief of Police Michelle Moore highlighted the role of law enforcement in supporting the fire response. He mentioned that they had over 100 officers deployed for evacuations and traffic control.
Wow.
With more ready to be deployed if needed.
Okay.
He also stressed the importance of public cooperation, urging residents to heed those evacuation orders and avoid the area to allow emergency responders to do their jobs.
That makes sense. The last thing they need is people getting in the way or putting themselves in danger. It seems like a lot of focus is on coordinating the response. But what about support for the people who've been evacuated?
Several elected officials spoke about that, including LA County Supervisor Lindsay Horvath and Los Angeles City Council President Marquis Hurst-Dawson.
Okay, what were some of their key messages?
Supervisor Horvath started by expressing her gratitude to the first responders and really drove home the seriousness of this fire.
Yeah.
She actually called it a life-threatening situation.
Wow.
And urged residents to ensure your home is unlocked, the power is off, and making sure first responders can easily access the structure.
Wow, those are strong words. She's not sugarcoating the situation at all.
Not at all. And she went on to talk about the resources being made available to evacuees, including shelters, animal care facilities, and information hotlines. She also highlighted the support they're getting from the state level.
It's encouraging to see that level of coordination. Did Council President Harris-Dawson echo those sentiments?
He did. He stressed the city's preparedness for these types of events and praised the hard work of the first responders.
Right.
He also mentioned that the city is declaring a state of emergency,
Okay.
which allows them to access even more resources and expedite the response.
So they're really pulling out all the stops. It sounds like they're doing everything they can to support both the firefighters and the people who've been displaced.
Exactly. He also made a personal plea for residents to stay off the roads unless absolutely necessary to allow emergency vehicles to move freely.
It's a good reminder that we all have a role to play in these situations, even if it's just staying out of the way.
Right then. Council member for the affected district, Tracy Park, spoke. She reiterated the importance of heeding those evacuation orders and mentioned resources being set up for evacuees.
It's great that they're taking care of the people who've been forced from their homes, but did she give any indication of when they might be able to return?
She was upfront about the fact that it's too early to say.
Yeah.
She said it might take a couple of days for firefighters to get a handle on the situation,
Okay.
and then it could be quite a while before residents are allowed back into the evacuated areas.
So it's a waiting game for those families. I can only imagine how frustrating that must be.
Absolutely. She really emphasized the importance of staying updated through official city channels.
Okay, so we've heard from a lot of local officials, but this fire is obviously getting attention at the state level as well. Did Governor Newsom speak at the press conference?
He did, and he started by acknowledging the hard work of everyone involved, emphasizing how California's mutual aid system is one of the best in the world.
Okay.
But then he had some pretty sobering words about the realities of wildfire in California. He said, there's no fire season. It's year-round, and that we're not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination.
That's a pretty stark statement. It's a reminder that this isn't just a one-time event. It's part of a larger trend.
Yeah, he'd just flown over the fire zone, and the devastation he saw firsthand really impacted him. He mentioned seeing destroyed structures and was concerned about reports that some residents were still refusing to evacuate.
Wow, that's concerning.
Yeah.
But he did say those impressive numbers for evacuation orders, 30,000 residents and 10,000 homes. Wow, those are huge numbers.
Right.
But I wonder how many people actually follow those orders.
Yeah.
We've seen in past fires that some folks choose to stay behind. How do they factor that in?
That's a great point, and one that officials are likely grappling with. He emphasized the need to check the state's fire information website, fire.ca.gov, for the latest updates and evacuation orders.
Okay.
Apparently, it's got 3D maps and live cams, really useful resources.
Sounds like a great tool for anyone who wants to stay informed. Did he address the federal government's role in this response?
Yes, he expressed gratitude to President Biden for quickly approving a federal emergency declaration.
Okay.
This gives the state access to federal resources and funding to help manage this massive fire.
So it sounds like they're getting support from all levels of government. Yeah. It's really amazing to see how quickly everyone is mobilizing to address this crisis. It's clear that everyone is taking this fire incredibly seriously. But as we heard from several officials, it's likely to get worse before it gets better.
Exactly. And while we've covered a lot of ground, there are still many questions to answer.
Yeah, like how long will it take to contain this thing? What's the full extent of the damage? And when will those 30,000 residents be able to return home?
Those are the big ones, but there are also questions about the fire's long-term ecological impacts and how this event fits into the bigger picture of increasing wildfire activity in California.
It can feel overwhelming when you think about all the potential consequences, especially with all that uncertainty hanging in the air. I think what we need now is a shift in perspective, a look at how this fire is impacting the people involved.
I agree. We've talked a lot about the technical aspects of this fire, but it's important to remember the human element of this story.
Absolutely. We can talk about acres burned and containment lines all day, but at the end of the day, this is about people's lives being turned upside down. It's like, hearing these firsthand accounts from the firefighters on the ground, it really drives home the point that these men and women are true heroes.
Absolutely.
They're running into danger while everyone else is fleeing.
Yeah, it takes a special kind of person to do that. And it's not just about bravery either. That's right.
It's about skill and knowledge.
Yeah.
They have to understand fire behavior, weather patterns, terrain.
Right.
All while making split-second decisions in these extremely dangerous situations.
It's mind-boggling. How do they even know where to start? It just seems like controlled chaos out there.
There's definitely a method to the madness.
Okay.
They use their experience and constant data feeds to figure out where to deploy resources, how to attack the fire strategically, and how to best protect people and property.
It's amazing and humbling to think about the level of coordination and expertise that goes into fighting a wildfire of this magnitude. I'm constantly learning new things on these deep dives.
And it's not just the firefighters on the front lines either.
Right.
It's the whole network behind them.
Yeah.
The dispatchers coordinating everything, the air tanker pilots dropping retardant, the mechanics keeping the equipment running, the logistics teams making sure everyone has what they need. It's a huge team effort. It really underscores the idea that it takes a village to tackle a challenge like this. And it makes you realize how important it is to invest in those firefighting resources.
Couldn't agree more. These folks are putting their lives on the line to protect us.
Yeah.
The least we can do is ensure they have the best training equipment and support possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've explored the immediate response, the human impact, and the incredible work being done to fight this fire. But as we wrap up our deep dive, what are some of the lingering questions that still need answers?
Well, there's definitely a lot of uncertainty still swirling around this situation.
Yeah.
How long will it take to fully contain the fire? What's the total damage going to look like? When will those families be able to return to their homes?
Exactly.
These are big questions that we don't have answers to yet.
And beyond those immediate concerns, what about the long-term consequences, the ecological impact, for example, or how this fire fits into the larger trend of increasing wildfire activity we're seeing in California and around the world?
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And it can feel overwhelming.
It can.
But I think it's important to focus on the hope and resilience we've witnessed amidst this disaster.
Yeah.
Those acts of courage from the firefighters.
Right.
The community coming together to support each other and the commitment to learn from these events.
Yeah.
And build a more fire-resilient future.
That's a really important point. Focusing on those positives can help us navigate the uncertainty and anxiety that these events inevitably trigger.
Exactly. And while this particular fire will eventually be extinguished, the conversation about wildfires needs to continue. We need to keep learning, adapting, and working together to find solutions. This isn't just a California problem, it's a global challenge, and we all need to be part of the solution.
So for our listener who's been with us on this deep dive, what's the one thought you'd like to leave them with?
I'd want them to feel empowered.
Okay.
We might not be able to control the wind or the flames, but we can control our own actions by staying informed, preparing for the unexpected, and supporting each other. Yeah. We can face these challenges head on and make a difference.
Beautifully said. And while we can't ignore the destruction this fire has caused, It's also important to remember that even in the aftermath of such events, there's always hope. We've seen incredible resilience from the community. And the dedication of these firefighters is truly inspiring.
It is a testament to the human spirit. Even in the face of such devastation, there's always a drive to rebuild, to learn, and to help each other.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the Pacific Palisades fire. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay safe.